joy of the Lord I get strength from. And so in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul's going to start off. Therefore, since God in his mercy has given us this new way. Now, he's saying, you are no longer of the world, but I'm going to leave you in the world. And that can be like a brain spin for us, that we're in this world, but we're not of this world. And he's going to give us a new way of not thinking like the world does, but how his kingdom does. I'm giving you a new way. We never give up. We reject all shameful deeds and underhanded methods. We don't try to trick anyone or distort the word of God. We shoot it straight. This is what the Bible says. We tell the truth before God. And all who are honest know this. If the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil, it is hidden from the people who are perishing. So what he's saying is, hey, you're not perishing. If you're born again, Christ is in your heart, that good news, the good news of his kingdom, is he wants to reveal to you. Satan, who's the god of this world, verse 4, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They're unable to see the glorious light of the good news. That was true when Jesus was dwelling with us, and it's still true today. We're like, how come people don't get this? It's one of my greatest excitements and passion is like when I came to Christ, I used to mock Christians in college because they would always say, these groups like Campus Crusade and stuff, who I have supported. We had planted a church in Radford, Virginia with Cru, but they would always come up to me and bug me. They're like, Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship. I'm like, what does that even mean? Until I found out it's real and we can hear his voice. And like, it was like, so like I was so, and still today after 42 years of ministry, like this is real. Andrew and I are going out in the streets today, and people are like, how do you know this? How do you know this about me? Like, are you psychic? I'm like, no, I'm psycho. That's what I am, right? Trying to explain to them, people who don't know because they've seen so much religion and not the reality of a God who knows us and loves us. And that can be overwhelming because religion is shame, guilt, condemnation. And God says, I so love you. And what that means is like he so loves you, there's nothing that you're going to do that is going to mess him up, that's going to deter from the love that he has for you. And there's nothing you're going to do to try to earn that by going, if I just work harder, maybe I'll have a chance to get it. I believe we can have assurance, right? And so the God who blinded his mind, blind don't believe, they're unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God. I want to just slow down on that. That exact likeness is like, it's the same material, it's the same essence is what he's saying. That Jesus is God. Jesus is going to say, Philip's going, Father, show us the Father. And Jesus is going to say, Philip, if you've seen me, you've seen God the Father. And then he bows down and starts worshiping to him. And Jesus doesn't go, hey, cut that out. That's only reserved for God. He receives worship because he was in the beginning. All things seen and unseen were created by him. So now we have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. God in some way gives us this humanity and divinity and the fragility of us just being clay pots. Like, Lord, why would you even do this? For this makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves. We're pressed on every side by troubles. Isn't that awesome? Anybody feel pressed the last couple of years? And it's just like, and it's on every side. This is even better, right? By troubles, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed. We don't get it, but not driven to despair. Verse 9, we're hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we get up again. No. We get knocked down, but we're not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. When people look at you and go, how can you go through that? We have hope inside of us. It's like, I know the God in whom I believe through suffering in our bodies. Yes, we will live under constant danger of death because we serve Jesus. That's good news. So that the life of Jesus will be evident in our dying bodies. Anybody here over 40? Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. 40 is as high as I'll go because I know there's people over that, right? But we continue to preach because we have the same kind of faith the psalmist had when he said, I believe in God, so I spoke. And we know that God who raised the Lord Jesus will also raise us up with Jesus and present himself together with you. And all of this is for your benefit. And as for God's grace reaches more and more people, there will be more great thanksgiving, and God will receive more and more glory. That is why, he says in verse 16, we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. And for our present troubles are small. You're going to look back one day and go, what was I so worried about? That's not a big deal. Like, wow, because you will be in the presence of God, and you can't even get how amazing that is. The 24 elders who are constantly before the throne room, and they are so overwhelmed. You got to catch this. It's not like, remember the Roadrunner and the Wile E. Coyote and the Sheepdog? And they're like, okay, I'm dating myself, right? One day they come in, hi, Ralph, and they're checking in on like a time card, right? And they go to work. It's not like they're just saying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. How much time do we got? Like, that's not what they're doing. They are so enamored by a God who is no beginning and end that they're constantly before his throne, overwhelmed by his majesty, overwhelmed by his glory. And all they can say is, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who is and was and is to come. You see, you don't even have an idea. That's why the Bible says no eye has seen, no ear has heard. You can't even put it on our finite radar because it's an infinite thing. It's outside the nature of our reality. Now look at verse 18. For we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on the things we cannot see. For the things we see now will soon be gone. Now this is mind-boggling. But the things we cannot see are eternal. They'll last forever. God's saying, remember the Matrix with Keanu Reeves, right? Remember the Matrix, right? It's like, take the red pill. That's why. Okay, I'm not going to get off on that. Take the blood of Jesus. But I'm just saying that your eyes have to be open to the reality that this is fading. And one day we'll look back going, why did I put all my investment into something that's perishing? I want an internal investment into lives, because there'll come a day. There'll come a day where you look and they'll go, hey, Nick, thank you. And sometimes it seems so insignificant. Has anybody shared your faith and go, man, I blew that, right? We're out on the streets today, and I have been out on the streets for a long time. Now we have a house now, but no, I'm not talking about that. But I remember one time I'm at a youth camp, and I'm in Seattle, and there's like 500 kids, and everybody, everybody's going by, and I see this one girl, and I hear the Lord say, John 10:27, a broken hip, 8 years old. And so all I did is, all I did is stop and go, hey, did you break your hip when you were 8 years old? She's like, hey, how would you know that, right? And so I'm not going to put my hand on a little, I'm not going to do that. So I see this girl like, hey, come here. And this little girl's like, wow, I can feel bones moving around. I'm like, cool. I never thought I'd see that girl again. And then here I am in Montana, and she comes up to me, and they're in Seattle, and she shows up in Montana, and she goes, Pastor Nick, do you remember me? I'm like, nope, don't remember you at all. She goes, I was at that youth camp. I go, I remember that youth camp. And she goes, and you had this girl pray for me, and she said, bones were moving around. Like, I remember that, right? And she goes, well, that's not the end of the story. I'm like, well, tell me what else happened. She goes, I didn't think it was really real. So I went to the doctor on Monday to check out, like, is that actually real? And I'm laying down on the table, and I'm feeling water hit the back of my head. And I look up, and the doctor's crying, and she's like, is everything okay up there? And the doctor, overwhelmed, goes, what did you do? And she goes, why? She goes, I just took an x-ray, and everything in your pelvis region is like brand new. What did you do? She got to lead the doctor to the Lord. What's my point on that? No idea. My point is this, is you don't realize the impact that you have within your life. You just live in this culture of like, well, here we are and we're singing praises to him. But all these people outside this area tonight, the majority of Cary's not in church. They might not be there tomorrow. Are you with me on that? With just as simplest thing as like Jesus loves you can be a profound statement. So why joy, right? Why joy? Why joy? And hopefully tonight we'll get refilled in joy. And I'm going to give you 4 themes for joy, right? That Paul had when he writes this, when he says, therefore, since God, verse 1, God in his mercy has given us this new way we never give up. First, God's joy over me is the starting point for my joy. The prophet Zephaniah in Zephaniah 3:17 says this: "The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love, and he will exalt over you with loud singing." Now, like, he's speaking about you. That the Lord sings over you. And I don't know how you do about singing. I love Susan because of her voice is amazing. She brings the presence of God. I don't sing a lot because it's not biblical. The Bible says don't quench the spirit. That's what I'm saying. So, but I'm a shower singer, and I'm the guy singing in my car, full blast, right? I'm the guy singing, and somebody drives up next to you, and they're like, they give you that look, right? But the Lord is singing you over loud. I remember, like, back in the days, I'm going to date myself, singing in my Ford 1967 Mustang with a 289 engine. We didn't have cassettes. We didn't have CDs. We had 8-tracks. They're like these huge, like, and I put in the 8-track singing to very spiritual things. Van something, I forget, But I want you to think about this right now, because the enemy wants to speak to you shame, guilt, and condemnation. You'll never match up. Oh, you look at it, and he's going to make you look at this, but you need to look that my God right now, despite me in this clay jar of broken mortality, that he's singing over me. I love you. And sometimes it's too good to be true. And if you hear that in your heart going, it can't happen, it's too good to be true, then you need to realign what God is saying over you. Because right here in Zephaniah, he's singing over you loudly. Why would he do that? Because you're one of his kids. He's adopted you. He picked you out. And we lose the connotation of that because of we've been adopted. We have a spirit of adoption. But that's a Roman thing. It's called the vindicatio. It's a ceremony the Romans would do to adopt. And so there's Caesars that have been adopted. Caesar Octavian was vindicatioed. And essentially, the Caesar passes like, I can't give my inheritance to my natural earthly son. So Caesar Octavian, I'm vindicatioed. It's where we get the word vindicated from. And I'm going to bring you up in front of a court. And I'm going to give you my inheritance. I'm going to give you a new name. I'm going to give you a new name, and everything is mine is now yours. In front of a court of law, I'm going to pay a price for you, and everybody will know you now, not as who you were, but they're going to know you as Caesar. God has given you a new name. He doesn't look at you as the old has passed away. He looks at you, and he says, Isabella, you're my favorite daughter. And all the angels are like, whoop, whoop. And so when you hear that contrary voice, we have joy because before you're born, he knew you. Before you were born, he proclaimed over you Psalm 139:16. David, the psalmist, says, your eyes saw my unformed substance. And in your book, this is nuts, in your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me. God has a book for you in the library that he pulls out and goes, man, the best is yet to come. Like you went through a bad chapter, but the best is yet to come. Like that's why when he says, I know the plans I have for you, because he's already orchestrated your destiny. I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope in the future. And I know he's writing that to Israel. I'm going to apply that to my life. Are you with me on that? I know the plans that I have for you, plans of good, not destruction. And so many times we get stuck on that page and God's going, you haven't read the end of the book. The days that were formed of get worked up. When he said there was none of them. Before you were born, God knew you. He saw you. He delighted over you. He started singing praises. He so loved the idea of you, he had to create you. If God had a refrigerator, your picture would be on it. That's what I'm talking about. Because God is joyful over me, I should be full of joy, not out of works. Then there's the joy of assurance. You know, when people are like, they're telling you something, but you just know, like, no, I have this. 2 Corinthians 4:16, that is why we never give up. You can imagine Paul, he goes, I never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed. Revelations 21, 2 and 3. And John is going in, he's in the island of Patmos. John is elderly. John's an enigma. Every one of the apostles live a martyr's death except for John. They try to boil John in oil. He doesn't boil. What did that even look like? Are you with me on that? Like they put John in boiling oil and he doesn't boil. Like, what was he doing? Like James Brown, like, hot fun in the hot tub. Like this hot oil is like makes my skin so supple and my hair so nice, you know. But he preserved him because in his book going, your chapter's not over, and I'm going to get you to this place, and you're going to have a insight of things to come. And he's going to say, I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. Now, those that are married, I can look back at one of the most significant days of my life 35 years ago, and I remember the day Robin is walking down the aisle. Woo! I gotta go. I remember that day.
36 years on Tuesday.
Thank you. I just remember that day. I remember it was so weird. We got married in a Catholic church. We had an Irish priest. He was hammered. And I remember looking at an exit sign and my heart's racing. And we had to go through the Catholic ceremony. And so I wrote on my shoes, on the bottom of my shoes, we had to kneel down and I wrote, help me. And so every time we bowed down to kneel, everybody started laughing. And Rob's like, why are they laughing? I'm like, I have no idea. And I remember looking at her and I remember like, how? Why would she say yes? And 36 years later, now I'm asking, why did she stay? Because God prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from that throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. See, I have an assurance that one day, like whatever we're going through, doesn't even compare to the wedding day that we'll have with him. And we'll see him adorned, and he's the groom in all this, and we're the bride. Guys, I know that always one wig me out, like, how can I be a bride? But I want you to put yourself in that place as a groom because you chased her. And we have a God who chases us, and he's at us and puts the ring on us, a seal and a signet, and saying, you're mine. And so we peek into the future just on a grand scale. So we're not there yet. Suffering still breaks into our lives. And that's what Paul's talking in 2 Corinthians. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long. That they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and lasts forever. There's going to come a day where people, like, you go, wow, I went through this suffering. I went through all this stuff, and was it worth it? And the Lord's going, oh, I got a crown for you. I got a jewel that's going to happen that you have no idea, that people are looking through, and you're going to look back one day, and people are like, oh, like, we get wigged out because people, like, what if I have to die for my faith? You know, in this first couple of centuries, there's a guy named Justin Martyr. And Justin Martyr thought something was wrong with him. He was crying out like, Lord, please let me martyr. Tertullian's the guy where we get the name Trinity from. And he actually writes a theology for how martyrs died. And like, I can't even talk about it because there's this one girl named Priscilla, and she's in the amphitheater, and Tertullian's writing about the dignity because when they put her in the amphitheater, the leopards that were supposed to eat her up bow to her feet. They bow to her feet. They just go like, they bow to her feet. And she goes up to one of the gladiators and takes the sword. It's like something we can't even comprehend. Like, we're fearful, but where we fail to miss it is we're only here for such a brief period of time. My dad is 91. He's starting to get dementia, which is weird, right? Like, but he can buy his own Christmas presents now and get excited about it. So and I talking to my dad, I was down there and I'm like, Dad, tell me the thing that amazes you most about your life. And he goes, Nick, how quick it goes. How quick it goes. And so rejoice. We have assurance. The joy of being a child of God is something that, and I'm talking today about joy and being filled with joy. And how do we get joy if you're joyless? The joy of being a child, right? Paul says in 1 Corinthians 4:18, so we don't look at troubles we can see now. Little kids have something that we don't get. Little kids have the ability to play. You can give a little kid like a can, and pretty soon they're talking into it, or they're doing something like you don't need a Nintendo. They'll just find something. It's like this childlike innocence that they have about them. Like I heard the story of this little girl, and her mom's taking her to the doctor, and the doctor has the stethoscope, and he's looking into her ear, and he looks into her ear, and he goes, "Is that Big Bird I see in there?" And she's like, "Oh, no, no, no." And he has the stethoscope, and he puts the stethoscope on her heart, and you can hear her heart beating, and he goes, "Is that Big Bird that I'm hearing going on? Is that Barney I'm hearing beating inside your heart?" She goes, "No, Barney's on my underwear. Jesus is in my heart." All right, man, I do dad jokes. That's just okay. So I am forever and irresistibly a child of God. Jesus shows up on the scene and says something in the culture that's offensive to that culture because of the reverence. They would consider at that period of time irreverent, but he calls his father Abba. And that is a term of endearment, as that a little kid would say, daddy, papa, whatever. It's a term of endearment that can be considered irreverent. But what Jesus does is gives us a new insight of his Father. I don't know about you guys, but if anybody was ever to mess with one of my daughters, I have 5 daughters, that'll get a guy praying. If anyone would ever try to mess with one of my 5 daughters, I don't care who it is, you will see me become ninja pastor. I'll be like, what up? Right? You don't mess with my kids. And so when you go like, Lord, I'm through this, God has you in his hand. God is a good father. He's not an evil father. The devil's going to go, oh, if he was a loving father, you wouldn't have to do that. See, you haven't read the end of the chapter, because remember we read earlier, there's a book written about you, and you're not reading the ending, because in the ending, we triumph. That's what the book of Revelation is about. People are like, is it pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, amillennial, premillennial? Who cares? That's not the point of it. That's theology. The book of it is like, we go through some rough times, but we win at the end, and there's a place prepared for you that no eye has seen and no ear has heard, and this is only temporary. And get over it, man. They paved the streets with gold. It's like the story of the one guy goes, can I bring anything from her? Sure, what do you want to bring? Brings a bat of gold. The angels will laugh like, you're bringing our asphalt. So how do I get joy? You have to experience it from your heart. Joy is heartfelt, not headfelt. You can deal with it up here, and you can start saying, well, the joy of the Lord is my strength. So how do we bring it from here to here? Slow down. Psalm 1, how blessed is the person, right? Leans not on their understanding. In his law they will delight, and they will meditate upon it day and night. The word meditate is not like Eastern meditation, like somebody sitting up in the Himalayas with the depends on. That's not the type of meditation. It's the type of meditation, literally, of a cow chewing its cud. Now, some of you guys are from the city. I came from Montana. A cow will chew its cud, and it has multiple stomachs, and it regurgitates, and I know, gross, sorry. I still like ribeye. It's in Luke 15. They break out the fatted calf, okay? If you're vegan, I'm sorry. Right? But it's just like, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And let the word, Barbara, you crying? Slow down. Okay. How do I get joy? I don't know. You just made me lose my place. Get beyond the rational mind and get a beginner's mind. In psychology, there's a thing called a beginner's mind. A mind not tainted by or occupied by past experiences, and therefore frees you from categorizing a new experience before you can fully experience it. Let me just say that again. Sometimes our history, we come in our history and it shuts us down. Trauma, whatever like that, we shut down, and we don't want to experience anything new because we're fearful. And a beginner's mind is saying, you know what, I got to come back to that childlike heart of saying, God, help me to experience this thing again. It's like the story I heard of a little boy, and there's a lightning storm. And I like lightning storms, man. It's like I hear the thunder, and it just rocks. I like the loud, like shake the house thunder. And then a second or two later, lightning's coming. Well, this little boy's in kindergarten, and it's thunderstorms happening. His mom's like, I'm driving to school, and I got to get him because he can't walk home by himself. And he's driving, and she goes, come on, you want to get in? He goes, I don't want to get in. And like, and every time there's lightning, he just look up and smile. And the mom's looking at the son like, why don't you want to get in the car? You know, lightning looks up again and smiles. He goes, because God's taking my picture. That's a childlike heart, right? That's a childlike heart. Like, wow, Lord. So Mark 10:14, Jesus says, let the little children come to me. Do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of God. Talking about the little boy that comes up on his lap. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child shall not enter it. We just got to have that heart. And so those historians, Suffer Not the Little Child, about that child that comes up and sits on his lap, a lot of theologians think that was a guy named Polycarp. Polycarp, who crazy miracle stories. If you believe like spiritual gifts ended when the last apostle guy, Polycarp, you'll read about him in the Fox's Book of Martyr, was that little boy who sat on Jesus' lap, who became a disciple of Jesus, who saw the miraculous happen, who will disciple a guy named Irenaeus, who will see the miraculous happen. We have writings about. But I can sit here for the next hour and go through church history. I'll spare you the grief. Suffer not the little children. It's the heart of Jesus. So Jesus was pointing out the truth that a child is completely dependent. Little kids don't worry about meals. Little kids don't worry about safety or substance or knowledge when they do, because joy is over them. And God wants us sometimes, as hard as it is to say, don't look at this, look at me and be assured. And then there's the joy of our inheritance. 1 Corinthians 4:18. So we do not look at the troubles we can now see. We don't look at this. And it's not denial. It's not rationalization. It's us getting a different perspective of looking at Him and waiting on Him and slowing down and coming as kids going, Father, Lord, I'm waiting on you till you touch me. Does that make sense to you? Am I communicating okay? Right? Ephesians 1:11 says, in Him we have obtained an inheritance, having been predestined according to the purpose of Him who works all things according to the counsel of His will. An inheritance is promised when someone is alive, but granted when someone dies. Can we just say, like, He has fulfilled the requirements to establish a new and better covenant? That through this inheritance, under the Jewish Sinai law, you had to go through all this ritualistic thing. The veil's been torn. Hebrews says that the old covenant is passed away. Hebrews 8, we have a new and better covenant where we can come into His presence, not by our works, but by His shed blood. So we've been adopted by Him. He's pointed you out in the joy of His kingdom, right? A.M. Hunter relates a story. And he's talking, he's a doctor, and he's talking about a guy, and I don't know how you guys roll. I used to be afraid, like, wow, I'm afraid to die, and now I look forward to it. And he's dealing with a guy at death's door. And he's like, Doc, what's it like? What's heaven like? And he could hear his dog outside scratching the door. And all of a sudden, like, the Lord spoke to him that. He goes, hear that door? Hear my dog outside the door? And he goes, yeah. He goes, it's kind of like that. He goes, what do you mean it's kind of like that? Well, I'm His master, and He knows I'm here, and He can't wait to be with me. That's kind of what it's like. And so what you do on earth matters, right? We believe at the branch that save people, serve people, and there's joy in this. So we're lacking joy sometimes is because we're all about self, and God in this upside down kingdom, the first shall be last, last shall be first. Serving doesn't make sense to us. I thank God that you guys are guys that serve. You guys are here early praying and trying to help set up and doing all this other stuff. 1 Peter 4:10 says, as each has received a gift. I just want to say, like, each one here, like, I'm thankful for the balance. Like, when I look at my wife, if I did not have the gifts that my wife has, we wouldn't be here today. My wife has an administrative gift. Me? Woo! Let's have fun. Bob and I, we're lucky we made it to the meeting today. Because we love people. That's what I love about Bob. What about Bob? I love Bob because he loves people. Sorry, Joe, it doesn't get any better. I'm sorry. So each of us has a gift, and we use it to serve one another. He says in 1 Peter 4, good stewards of God's grace. Whoever speaks, as one who speaks. Oracles of God. Whoever serves, as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Christ Jesus. And so I want to encourage you guys. How does God receive? Well, I'm going to pass through my notes so off these things tonight. I want to pray over you that joy be restored. Has anybody been in a battle for joy? I have a lady in my last church. She literally changed her name to Joy. And all the other pastors in town were making fun of her. Joy, she's the most joyless person I've ever met in my life, right? That's what you just call her, joyless, mocking behind her back. And I've never met a woman that I've seen the transformation of God. Like, it takes faith to go to court going, the name I was born with, I'm changing it because God has given me a new name, not only in heaven, but this new name is what God is going to give me now. And I saw her in her brokenness and just stuff that no person should ever have to walk through. Just a mess. I'll leave it at that. No person should ever have to walk through that. And seeing her content, God, this is who I am in you. And Lord, I'm going to go to court. I'm going to have a name that said everybody looks at me. They'll hear what you say over me in heaven. That you have joy. I am joy. And this is what's going to happen. I'm going to pray over you guys right now. And I'm going to pray over you guys' boldness. I'm going to pray over you fear. Would it be okay if I tell another story? Am I telling too many stories tonight? Because I just watched that movie, Jesus Revolution, and it triggered so much because that's where I came to the Lord. I came to the Lord in that, and it just brought back memories. And it brought back memories because I was 16 in high school in Calvary Chapel and going down there and seeing God move like that changed my life. I'm here today as a result of that. And I remember that period of time, and I thought about something I hadn't probably thought about in 30 years. But when I came and gave my heart to Jesus, I was an athlete. And I was the best runner to come out of that high school. They actually did a movie about my high school 15 years ago called Freedom Riders, and that was my high school. And I was the fastest runner to come out of that high school in 100 years. And so that opened up a lot of opportunities, like, do I go to UC Santa Barbara? Do I go to UC Riverside? But I was so shy. And I was awkward because now I realized that I had to make a change in my life, that the people group that I hung around with, and I hung around, like, I don't know how your high school rolled, but we had like cliques. We had like 4,000 people in our high school, and we had cliques. You know, we had the surfer dudes because I grew up in Southern California. Like, dude, I was at Trestles today, overhead, barreling, you know. So you had that group. We had the jocks. We had the cheerleaders, and they were like, Jesus! 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 And then we had the stoners, like, wow, dude, I was just talking to Jesus. One of the guys that was most significant that I remember, and the last time I saw him at USC. And Ted, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to Brazil. I'm going to be a missionary in Brazil. And that's the last I ever heard of him. But I want you to get an image of the boldness that Ted had. This is a period of time, like, I'm not too tall. Ted was shorter than me. He was tiny. Everybody back in that period of time had long hair, predominantly like the lion's share of people. So if you can imagine me, hair down to here, my hair was like, because I surfed, I had this like, anyway, salty. Like when I got my senior pictures, I just got out of the water. My mom put on like a coat and I had like a shirt on with like, right? So that's me. Everybody had long hair. Ted had uber long hair. Like Ted wanted to be Jesus. His hair was like down to here. Short guy. Ted carried a Bible every day to school, and I was like, dude, how can you do that? I carried a Bible, but it was like one of those Gideon pocket, like daggers, you know what I'm saying? Like it fit here because I was still awkward. Ted carried like Like, I don't know if you've ever seen pulpit Bibles. Like, they're not like this. They're like this and like this. Like you got to like, he carried a huge Bible and he had a cross on. And crosses became somewhat fashionable. Little gold cross, that's cool. Not Ted. Ted had like 2x4s for a cross. And like so like and everywhere he went, like he was unintimidated. He'd go up to the surfers and he'd share his faith, and he'd go up to the stoners and share everywhere he went. And Ted convicted me because I'm like, here Ted is sharing his faith unashamedly. I mean, big cross, big Bible, super long hair, not the most attractive looking guy. And a day that resonated in my life, there was a guy in our high school, means nothing to you guys at all. His name is Clyde Males. I say that name, I tremble right now. Clyde was a football player, and I think Clyde was like, I don't know how much weight Clyde, if you can image in your head right now, like a bulldog, a bulldog, kind of like roughy bulldog face, that looks like Clyde's face. Clyde was always, he's just a big, huge guy. Intimidating. Everybody in the school was afraid of Ted. And we had these overpasses, like you'd have like floors and overpass. And I remember walking behind Ted one day, and Ted stops in front of Clyde Males. Like, this is intimidating. Like, bro, this is Clyde Males. He's the biggest, baddest guy in our school. And I remember Ted just go, Clyde, I want to tell you about Jesus. And he's like, get out of here, man. I'm like, Ted, this is a good idea. Let's go now, right? He goes, get out of here. And Ted's like, no, I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to stay here and tell you the good news of Jesus. And Ted's like, get out of here now. And Clyde's like, get out of here now, man. I'm like, Ted, ixnay on the Jesus A, eh? And he sat there, and Clyde winds up a gooby. And like, whoa, spits on Ted. It was like slow motion, like dun 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 dun. Hits him. I'm like, ah! And Ted just takes it off, wipes it, and goes and starts sharing about Jesus to this beast. And Clyde starts tearing up. I'm like, this is good. We're not going to get beaten up today. And I think back on that, I'm like, courage. All courage is fear hanging on 1 second longer. All courage is, and when God commands Joshua over and over again, 3 times in Joshua 1, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? And I'm going to pray over you right now, because we're in a period of time where the enemy wants to, like, hey, be quiet. This is offensive, And God's saying, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? And as you're strong and courageous, I'm going to fill you with joy, that the world is going to look at you and go, how can you do this? Because, ladies and gentlemen, if there's a clock, if there's a God clock, we're kind of coming up, I think, to the final, things. Like in eschatology, the study of end times, like Revelation 16, the Euphrates River will dry up, and the kings of the east with 200 million will cross the Euphrates River. Go Google that. Like, the Euphrates River has dried up. China has an army of 200 million. Like, I don't know. 50 years ago, I thought, because I heard people say all the time, Jesus is coming back soon, dude. And now I'm like, no, now I really believe it. And so, Father, I want to pray for you right now. If there's anybody here who doesn't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, a simple prayer of just, Jesus, forgive me of my sins and come into my life would be really appropriate right now. Forgive me my sins, Lord. Come into my life. Fill me with your Spirit. Today I walk away from that, and I walk towards the Lord right now. And if you've already prayed that prayer, Father, I want to pray for each one of us here now, that, Lord, you would fill us up right now, that a spirit of boldness right now. The Bible says the wicked flee when no man pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Father, I pray for such a time as this. Everybody knows something's going on. Everybody feels like what's going on with this world, and fear of the economy collapsing, and fear of war, and Hey, it says before he comes back, there'll be wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, all these things. But God appointed us with his books, saying, hey, I'm writing you in this chapter right now, before you're born. I didn't sign up for that, but God so loves you. He's saying, yeah. And you might feel ill-equipped. You might feel like you can't do this. Like, you guys, I was a ferocious stutterer. I stuttered. I was so afraid of people. And I just dared to say yes. It starts in the dare to say yes. And what I found out is your yeses get bigger. And so, Father, I pray for my friends. I don't know if I have the words, I always convey it, but I love you guys. I'm proud of you guys for staying with us and being with us and persevering and going out on the streets and all the things that you guys do. But there's more that God has for you. There's more that God has for you in this. And so I want to pray for those who are out in the work field that God would this week would set you up with divine appointments. That he would open your eyes. That you would have that strong and courageous. That things aren't hopeless because he's a God who orders our steps. And last time I read it, my Bible says all things are possible to him or her that believes. So I pray that over you now in the name of Jesus. Amen.